Yes, you can start. The live stream is on, Sundaravani, and you can start. Yeah.
Dear speaker, colleague members, learners, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sundaravani, one of the volunteers of Kaleleaf, here to host today's event. It gives me immense pleasure in inviting you all to this valuable workshop on Introduction to LaTeX. And it is assured that this workshop will make you write mathematics textbooks. I thank our MTTS Trust and faculty advisors for their support to conduct this workshop. Now, we can start this program with a short opening note from Professor Satyanarayana Reddy, our MTTS faculty advisor working at Shivanadar University. Sir, over to you.
You are on mute, sir.
Somebody unmuted, yeah, okay. Thank you for inviting me. Good evening to all of you. On behalf of MTTS Trust, I welcome all of you for this wonderful workshop and in fact opportunity to learn LaTeX. I'm glad to appreciate Kaleleaf team and speaker Aryaman for their efforts make this possible, right? The topic of today's workshop is essential for every mathematician that we know. We hope in future that every university, in fact, every mathematics department will offer a short course on LaTeX. Once I attended a seminar, okay, that is by Professor Ramurthy, who is a famous number theorist. After the talk, one of the audience asked him, okay, one interesting question. The question is that how it is possible for you to write so many books and so many articles, lecture notes, etc. His answer is also much interesting. He simply say that I LaTeX at least 1 hour every day. Yeah. So it is like doing an exercise at least 1 hour every day. Like that, better to LaTeX at least 1 hour every day. So you may also know that our beloved Professor Kumaresan sir, right? He published at least around 5 books in the last 2 years. But of course, he started collecting the material and typing for the many years. It is not that it comes like that. So we need to type day-to-day life, and then slowly it will build up, right? So that is the lot of hard work done for many years. Then we got the books now, right? So one can see many expository articles in MTTS website. They're almost all of them are written by LaTeX only. Right? These are the live examples you have. So you can also start writing or means typing your subject content as per the way of your understanding. So that is the beauty of this LaTeX, right? So you can write the way you like, and you can put content in a very beautiful manner. Of course, your speaker will tell today. So start collecting some material on some topic. Okay. So slowly it become a nice expository article, right? It is possible. You can also you can write some nice article. The provided you start typing your ideas and all, right? So yeah, but again, LaTeX also initially like exercises. Initially, it is bit painful, but once you started doing it, so you understand the power of the typesetting. So wonderful platform. Hope next year one of the participants approach Career team, become a member of resource person to conduct latest workshop again. Like that, it will continue for years. And that is my wishes, and best wishes to all the for the workshop and curry leaf versus overleaf. Okay, once again, thanks to all of you. So over to you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable note on this event. This program is also live stream on Kareleaf YouTube channel. Those who are in live stream in your YouTube channel may also join this Zoom meet, which is mentioned in the YouTube channel. And before going to this workshop, if you have any doubts in between the sessions, you may feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. Now, this is time to introduce our speaker, an aspiring mathematician, Mr. Aryaman Maithani. Currently, he is pursuing a BS Maths degree in IIT Bombay. Aryaman has created many LaTeX files on different math topics like topologies, commutative algebras, measure topology, group theory, etc. You may find his valuable note and LaTeX file on his GitHub webpage. Also, he is skilled in many technical languages like LaTeX, Python, Akame too. He topped in many national level exams like JEE, KVPI, and he is also the recipient of KVPI fellowship offered by Indian Institute of Science. Without any delay, I invite Mr. Aryaman to kick off his session on Introduction to LaTeX.
Hey everyone, I am Aryaman Maithani and thanks for the lovely introduction. I will start sharing my screen and I will start this session as well. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the platform that we will be using is Overleaf. And it is the reason I would suggest using Overleaf to begin with is that it takes away the hassle of setting up LaTeX on your own. Once you are comfortable enough with writing LaTeX, then you can start worrying about these small things. So it is quite easy to just set up an account on Overleaf. So you can just go to the website and you can log in with the Google. So you don't have to do anything else. You can just sign up with Google. So I already have an account. So let me just sign into that. And then you get a page like this. And you can just simply create a new project. So you just click on new project here, blank project, and you can name it something which you want. So let's say a test project. And then it creates something like this for you. So I have already created a blank project. I'll just share this screen. Yeah. And there is this link here, bit.ly/. So there's this link bit.ly/CL for curry leaf and then LATEX for LaTeX. All of you can go to that page and you will be able to see what I'm typing live as I am typing it. So let me just put this in the chat as well. So I've put it in the chat. So if you go to this page, you can actually see what I'm typing as I'm typing it. And you can do this even if you don't have an Overleaf account. So this would be easy for you to follow. And you can scroll up if you want to look at something else. And most importantly, you can come back to this document later. So you need not go through the whole YouTube lecture again if you just want to see a particular thing. Okay, so let us start. So the first thing I want to point out is that there is a bit of a learning curve, as was mentioned earlier. And in fact, there is this nice picture which depicts that. So time and effort needed is a bit more for LaTeX at the beginning, but eventually I hope that you all will appreciate that it is the best possible option out there. So what makes it so difficult at the beginning is the fact that most of us are used to a format called what you see is what you get. So whatever you type on Word, that is your final end product. LaTeX is not quite like that. It is somewhat like, you may think of something like HTML, where you have to write a code in the background and then it compiles into something else. So as you can see on the right side is the output. This is another advantage of Overleaf. It has a nice interface. So on the right is the PDF, which is what you might have seen PDFs in the past whenever you've seen mathematical writing. On the left is where you write your code. So on the left there is some jargon at the beginning. We don't have to worry about that so much to begin with. And that is also one of the good things about Overleaf. You don't have to worry about many of the other things in the background. So let us just start. So this is how you would open a new document. You would have this. And let us start writing. So we may write something like, hello, this is Aryaman. I've written this and so far nothing has changed. Nothing has popped up on the right. This is because you need to compile your code. So after you've done something, you click on this green button, recompile, and then this should fortunately, hopefully, produce the result that you want. It may not always be the case that you get what you expected, and that is essentially why one must learn later. Another shortcut is to simply click Control plus Enter. So you can do this as well. So as I'm typing out things, if I compile on my end, you may not see the updated version. You may have to recompile on your own end. And you can also click Control plus Enter and recompile it. The only thing is that you cannot edit my file as I am using it. So just to recall, this is the link, bit.ly/cl-latex all capital. Now, the first thing which I want to point out again is that this is really not everything which you type here will be composed verbatim. For example, if I want to go to the new line, I'll just press enter and I will say, okay, this is me trying a new line. And if I hit compile, what do I get? Not something which I would expect. This is not what I would have wanted. I would have wanted to go to a new line, but this is still the same line. So if you want to go to a new line, what you have to do is you have to put /new line and then hit enter. So this /new line is the command which tells later that you want to go to a new line. So now this is hopefully a new line. And now I hit compile again. And yes, this is actually what I wanted. What you could also do is you could leave a line and then go to a new line. This is what LaTeX considers as a new paragraph. So now if I hit compile, this is a new paragraph. So LaTeX by default does this thing where it's indenting a bit to the right and it has created it on a new line. So what did I have to do? I had to insert a blank line in between. Okay, let us now try some effects like bold, italics, and so on. So this is text BF bold. So this is the command for writing something in bold. So there is /text BF, curly braces, and then bold. So this is typically what a command will look like. So it will be / and there will be some command name. And then there would usually be some sort of argument that you pass under. Again, if you've done any sort of programming before, this is sort of what you would expect. Like you have a function and you're passing something into the function. So text BF, so BF stands for boldface, I believe. Text BF is bold. Text IT will be italics. So this is italics. You can also insert footnotes. So you can do a /footnote. This is a footnote. I have pressed enter, control enter, and the footnote, as one would expect, would appear at the bottom of the page. So one thing which at this point you may appreciate is it is not that much difficult. It's not that different to create a footnote than to create something in italics, than to create something in bold. As compared to a normal word processor where you would have to go and look at different commands, it is quite simple to do these things here. Someone has typed, I can't get the black format on your screen even after putting the link in my overleaf document. Oh, so that black format is actually what I've just customized my overleaf. So if you click on the menu on the left here and you just scroll down, the editor theme is what I've changed. So that editor theme is, this is a dark mode. That is just personal preference. And someone has pointed out that env also works for italics, and that was my next point. Env works, and I would suggest always using env. So this is also italics. And the good thing about env is an involution for, so let me just type, this is an involution. So what that means is if I have an env within an env, it will turn back to normal, which is sort of what you might want, because if you're trying to emphasize on something and then you want to give extra emphasis on something, you might want it to again be something different from your other parts. So how cool is that? So this is, yeah. So env is what one would mathematically say in involution. If you apply it twice, you get the normal thing. You apply it thrice, you get single time, and so on and so forth. So this is why I would always recommend using env. So env stands for emphasis, by the way. Now let us put something in quotes. So let me use my normal quotes. Teach a man to fish. Okay, let's see how that turns out. At first, it may not look weird, but if you zoom in and see, these quotation marks are quite weird. What one would expect usually is that this is a closing mark, which I would expect, but this beginning one is not what I would want. And the way to do it correctly is as follows. You use this thing called backtick. So if you look at your keyboard, it is on the left of your one, typically. So again, teach a man to fish. And for closing quotes, you put the usual ones. And now if you compile, you will get what you expect. So these are indeed opening quotes and these are closing quotes. And in fact, this is sometimes how you might spot someone who uses LaTeX. So I've seen that some professors of mine, even if they're not using LaTeX, they have this habit of writing something in quotes like this. So they will use the backtick for the opening one and the usual one for the closing one. At this point, I'll point out how do we write comments. So if you put a percentage sign, everything after that on that line is a comment. This is how you spot LaTeX user. And this, as you would expect, will not show up in your compiled document. So LaTeX is just going to ignore all of these things. So someone has asked as a direct message, how do we get Overleaf? So the answer is you just go to the Overleaf website, overleaf.com, and set up an account. It's free of cost. And to get some more features, you may need premium, but typically the features which it offers is sufficient for a student. Okay, so far this is our paragraph. And just to make a comment on the top part, it might be self-explanatory what these things are. So curly leaf LaTeX is what it puts as title. This make title command here is what results in this title being created. You can change these things here. So curly leaf LaTeX, I want to keep it as it is. Aryaman Maithani, I can just make, if I remove Maithani, for example, it will become Aryaman. Another cool thing is instead of putting the date manually, you can put this thing called /today. And what that would do, no prizes for guessing, is that it will put the date, the current date. The one benefit of this is if you suppose work on this document tomorrow and compile it, this will automatically get updated, which might be useful in some certain scenarios. So any questions so far? Okay, no, the chat is empty.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
So about the date, does it refresh every time you open the document?
Yes, so every time you recompile it, it will pick that day's date. So if I recompile this tomorrow, I will get March 28, 2022.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
We have to remember that program, that section, make title, begin, date, all of that.
Yeah, so that is if you create a new document on Overleaf, it will automatically put those things in. But yes, typically that is something which you would have to put in every time. But the thing is that there are many things which you will use many times over and over. So later, as we see, there will be many things which I'll actually end up putting before this document. I will typically import some packages, maybe define some new commands. We'll see those things. And the point is that most people who use LaTeX regularly eventually end up having something like a template. So they will have this one document which only has all this beginning stuff, blah, blah, blah. So it will be just this much. So without this section introduction, it will be just this part, which they will have. and they will just keep reusing it over and over. So to answer your doubt, you don't have to remember it in the sense that just write it there once, keep a document on your laptop, and every time you create a new document, you can just copy the things from earlier. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Someone is asking how to write this code on LaTeX, as I already have it on my laptop. So if you have LaTeX on your laptop, so I assume you have successfully set it up, you can just copy whatever I've written, make a file, name it whatever you want, .tex, so that's the extension. Open it in your compiler, you might be using MikTeX, and just compile it there. Someone is asking, what is the purpose of use package? Yeah, so I'm not able to see that. So the reason for that is that some people have asked these doubts as a direct message to me. So what I will do is I will just try to put them as comments here so you can see. So this is the first one that I just answered. Now I have another doubt, which is this. What is the purpose of use package this? And this is a good question. I'll just leave it to you to Google it. Partly because I don't know the answer. So secondly, because one of the key things which I want you to take away from this is this lecture is essentially supposed to be able to just get you started with how to use LaTeX, how to just create a very brief document. Most of the learning in LaTeX comes from creating your own documents by doing an assignment, by seeing some article and trying to replicate it yourself, and Googling. So I cannot emphasize how important it is to teach a man to fish, which is why I've written what it is. So if I give you a fish, you will know how to do it for a day. But if I teach you how to fish, you will be able to do it over and over. And can you please explain tabular layouts in LaTeX? Yes, I will do that eventually. And someone is asking, how is my theme dark? So you can Google that, how to make a dark theme in LaTeX, in Overleaf. So that's an Overleaf specific thing. So someone else had asked, how is the number 1 appearing before the introduction? So that is because of this. There's this thing called /section introduction, which is what I'm going to do next. So let us create a new section. So I'll just do /section. And now I want to focus on packages, environments, etc. So this is going to be my new section. So if I do compile, I will get a 2. And one thing which I want to point out, the number 1, I'd never had to type 1 introduction, 2 packages, environments, commands, etc. I just did /section, and Overleaf or LaTeX has already taken care of doing this. And this is important for another reason, which I'll tell you later on. So we've already seen commands. So all of these were commands: text pf, text it, env, footnote. So these are things which are typically it consisted of a slash, the command name, and then the argument. There can also be more complicated examples where you have optional arguments, you have multiple arguments. We will see these things soon. But now let us look at environments. So an environment will look something like begin, environment name, and then end environment name. So if you see, we already have this end and begin of document. So we are doing begin and end center. So this is what you might have seen in HTML, that we have a beginning tag and a closing tag. So every command in LaTeX is sort of sandwiched between. So here it was sandwiched between these 2 braces. So it was /involution. So involution was between these 2 braces. If you want something more elaborate, you usually have these. So begin center, end center. And again, no prizes for guessing what this would do. Let us compile and see what this does. And yes, this is centered text. Okay. Let us look at some different. So this is, let's say, huge. This is huge. And again, as one might expect, this is huge. One can even do nesting. So you can have begin center, end center, and you can put begin huge, end huge within that. And so this is centered and huge. And there are some other font sizes also, so I will just let you to check out. So there are so huge is had a capital H, so you can have small h, you can have large, and I'll let you compare these things.
Can you change the font voluntarily of the overleaf document, like without
Of the entire document, you mean?
Yeah, like you do in
Yeah.
Word.
Yes. So okay, let me just create this section which I want at the end. So let me just create one more section which are things which are easy to do, and which is why I want you to look them up later on. So this is one more section. So the first thing in this section, which is what is how do you create lists? This is something I want you to look up. If once I compile, this is sort of funny because you've actually seen how to create list. Another thing which is there is how to change font size. So I'll tell you one quick way here. So for example, I can make this 12 pt as an optional command over here. So things in square brackets are optional commands, and now everything has become a bit bigger. But I encourage you to just go and look that up later. How do you change font size? Yeah. Then let us see what else. So you can nest them. And now let us look at one very crucial thing which you would do is like you have to import packages. So one can import packages, and these package imports happen before you start the document. So these are imported before you begin the document. That is to say, before the begin document command. So let us import a package called verbatim. So let me just put it here. It's before begin document. So use package verbatim. So overleaf already has it. And so what this does is so once I've imported this package, I can use things which are defined by this package. So one thing which is there is this verbatim environment. So verbatim, if you know the word's meaning, you might guess what it is. Verbatim means that everything is done as it is. So everything appears as it is typed. So that means that if I put enter and I do something, this will actually create a new line. Commands will not work. So if I put text bf, it will appear as it is. Commands don't work. See, everything appears as type. This is a new line. I just had to put enter. Text bf, commands don't work. Even if you do irregular spacing, it will still make those spacing irregular. So I can just do something like this. In normal LaTeX, by the way, you can't have irregular spacing. If you put more than one spaces outside a verbatim environment, it will actually just consider that as one space. So even though I've put multiple spaces, this compiles as one space. Yeah. So one person has asked a question: can we not use double lines for new line? So let me just paste that here. Can we not put double slashes for new line? And the answer is yes, you can do that, but that is not considered good practice. So you can look up, there is a difference between slash new line and slash slash. For most intents and purposes, you can use slash slash and it will not create an issue. Like here, for example, if I check my log currently, there are no issues in my LaTeX code. But if I do put slash slash, it will give some sort of, those are not very, so if I put slash slash, this is also a new line. So it does not give anything, but at times it may give some issues like overfill, something, badness, something. So it is better to use slash new line, but yeah, for most intents and purposes, it will not matter. Okay, so this is how you create a new line. I want to show how you create a new page, but I've already actually reached the end of a page. So let me just type more things, blah blah blah. This hopefully comes on a new page, or not even more things. So would someone like to guess how one makes a new page? So we have slash new line and we have slash new page for a new page. So as of now, these things had come on the same page, but if I put a slash new page in between, these things will come on a new page. So this is a new line. It leaves vertical space and just goes on to the next page. So for example, before this section, I could have put a new page and then this will start on a new page as well. By default,
you can also use begin figure, right?
You can use begin figure, but for what do you want to use it?
Like I've observed that putting begin figure will give a page break and it'll like go to the next page.
Yes, but figure is notoriously difficult, and that is not the intended use, by the way. So figure, if you use correctly, you are able to use figure even without creating a new page break. If you want to say insert a figure in the middle of the page. So using begin figure for creating a new page is definitely not something you should want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Someone has said verbatim is creating errors in LaTeX. So one possible reason is that you have not imported this package, use package verbatim before begin document. So you have to put use package. If you don't put use package, there is no command called verbatim by default. So you have to import this package. And hopefully that would have cleared this out. So new page and even more things. And let us get down to some mathematics. So let's create a new section. Let's do some mathematics. Before writing anything in math, you would again need some packages which let you look at math commands. Okay, so this person says that the verbatim issue is resolved. Yeah. So I just typically use the same packages all the time. For math, these are the basic ones, which I will just paste over here below use package verbatim. If you want, I can also just put it in the chat in case you are doing it on your own as well. Yeah. So these are the packages which I'm using. Do not ask me what they individually do. I will likely not be able to tell you. And the point is that you do not need to know. Most of the time, you will have to use some of the other packages. So for example, AMS, THM. So AMS are these math packages, and then you have symbols, fonts for using different funky fonts for symbols such as the typical R and C, which you might have seen, and theorems for numbering theorems and such. Okay, so let's do mathematics. So there are two types of equations, two types of math environments, so to speak. So one is the inline mathematics, which self-description, you write it within the same line. So you have 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Or let's put a slash alpha. So slash alpha, so 1 plus 2 beta is equal to 3 alpha. So as you might guess, what appears here are the actual Greek letters, 2 beta, 3 alpha. So to type this, I needed to have known what the commands are. So what is this? I need to, so if I just type BETA, that will not appear as the Greek letter, that will just appear as this BETA. So it's the slash beta, and for the Greek letters, these things are pretty self-explanatory. And then you have something which are called display equations, so display mathematics. which you put in these sort of environments, slash square bracket slash square bracket, and you can just type the same thing here. The only thing is that now it will come in the middle of the page. And when you put a full stop, now you should put it within the environment itself so that your full stop gets rendered here. It's the same thing, but now it's in the middle and it's a bit bigger. And I can already sort of foresee someone might ask that you may also use double dollars. So I could have also put this thing display mathematics by putting $2 and doing this. And again, this is not good practice. So you may look up why it is considered bad practice. So this is not good. And yeah, so we have this. What I prefer usually using is just for personal preference is begin equation star. And I just put 1 plus 2 beta is 3 alpha. This will do the same thing. And so you might be wondering why is it equation star? And the point is that if I remove these star asterisks, what I will get is the numbered. So this will actually get numbered, which is why it is good to use equation star, because you can make it non-numbered very easily. So if I now compile this, this has this number 1 next to it. 1 plus 2 beta is 3 alpha. Okay, let's look at some different equation. If I want to do superscript, for example, I will press this caret, this up triangle, and I will type something like this. E times e to the power of iota pi plus 1 is equal to 0. So it creates what we might expect as this. Note, we have already made it much better than doing this on something like Word would be a nightmare. And especially if you want to get more complicated. So you can do subscripts, superscripts, and more things which you will see. And the point is that you can refer to these equations. So I can put something like a reference here. So I can make a label here. I can call it label. This is called Euler's equation. So I'll just make it label equation Euler. EQ colon Euler. I can write whatever I want here pretty much. But this is usually the practice I follow, that if I'm labeling an equation, I'll write EQ colon and then something. So we can refer to this as this refer EQ Euler. So label is what you want to call it, and refer is how you later reference to it. It's called Euler's equation. So that is what we have. One is called Euler's equation. Note, I never had to manually type 1. And this is useful because if I now put some equation before this, 1 equal to 1. This will also now it will, two things to note here. LaTeX has automatically taken care of the numbering. It has made this number 1 and this has made this number 2. And it has changed the link here. 2 is called Euler's equation. I certainly would not want 1 to be called Euler's equation just because the numbering has changed. So this is again much better than what there is no brute work, there's no manual work involved here. Now what one might want to do is, if you're creating a PDF which you're going to distribute online, you might want to create a link. So currently this is just text, but you can use this package called hyperref. Use package hyperref. And now what has happened is that if I compile, this is now linked. So you see this sort of a red square here. If I click on this, it will take me to this, which is more convenient if it is on a different page altogether. And you can also put this optional command here by square brackets, color links equal to true. So instead of this box, you get something which is more aesthetic. You get a red color 2 here. Click on it, you get. So this is a link now. You can also link to other things. For example, there was a section introduction. So right after the section, I will just label it as sec intro. And now I can say this is Euler's equation. And I can say that section, and I'll just put the number here using ref again. Intro was introduction. So now if I just click on 1, I am over here, which is great. In fact, you might say that even writing this introduction again is sort of redundant because I've already written the section name earlier, and you can change that also. So you can make this, instead of ref, use name ref. So name ref will actually name what that thing is. So you do section slash ref was name ref this. And now your introduction is also linked. And I didn't have to type introduction this time. It automatically took the name from here. So which means that if I change the name here, introduction to, let's say, LaTeX, it will automatically make the change here as well. And by the way, you might have noted that now this LaTeX looks a bit different. This LaTeX looks different from this, and that is because I have used this command /LaTeX. So if you do /LaTeX, you get this nice funky looking LaTeX. And that is also one way of spotting a LaTeX user if they use this for LaTeX. At least they know some basics about it. Now let's see what other things are there. We've used equation star to label, right? But if we use equation instead of equation star, then can we be able to use the ref command? Okay, let me just type the command out here. So the answer is I have not used equation star to label. I have used equation to label. Equation star cannot be, so equation star will not give a number. So you cannot put a reference to it. So there's a doubt from Saurabh. It's written, please show us to add color guarded tables and boxes. So I will show you how to use tables, and to make them colored, you can then look them. So I will just say one more thing which you can look up later on is how do you change the color of these links? So this link by default is red. How do you change the color of the links? How do you link to URLs outside? And can you do some customization in this linking of texts? And yeah. Okay, so we have seen this, and let me just go through some commands. So we have the usual Greek letters alpha, beta. We have integrals written as /int, and you can put limits by superscript and subscript /int 0 to 1. /sum also works the same way. /infinity gives you the infinity symbol. /partial gives you the partial derivative symbol, and so on. And let us look at fractions. So how do we do fractions? So fraction per command is /frac, and you just type your numerator and denominator. So your numerator can be quite complicated. It will automatically take care of that. 3e upon your denominator could itself have some integral, for example. So integral 0 to 1 x squared dx. So this is a fraction. And let me just paste some very usual, typical commands. So yeah, let us just look at these, what these are. So you have these these are called blackboard fonts, because that's how usually mathematicians would write them on the blackboard. So these are these R, N, Q, C at the beginning. So the command for that is /mathbb. So the BB stands for blackboard board, blackboard board. So these are your commands. And then you have alpha, beta, gamma, which we had seen. And then you have /phi, which gives you this normal phi. And then you have /var phi, which gives you how typically one might write phi on a board or something. Then we have fractions. We have union, intersection, so that is /cup/cap. And then we have wedge and V, O plus O times. And at this point, I will also link this URL. So there is this website called DTechFi. And If you Google it, Dedectify, you'll get the website where you can sort of draw a symbol and it will tell you what is the command for it. So you get different recognizing. So this is a useful thing. So I've included that URL also. So these equations were on single line, by the way. So you might want to do things on multiple lines. So for that, we use align. Align star is what I'm using because I don't want them to be numbered. So here you can write things on multiple lines. So for example, I can write something like this. And if I want to go to a new line here, I will use these two slashes. So here, this is the correct thing to do. And I might use, so this is how this will compile. So limit. So by writing these things, I'm also implicitly showing you how to write superscript, subscript, limits, things like this. So by default, align will make everything left aligned. So if you have something more complicated on the other side, you will see that, like, let me just show. So now note that everything ends on the same thing on the right. It is right aligned. But these, suppose I want that the equality sign should appear one below the other. So the way to do that is I just put an ampersand, which is this and symbol, before the equality signs. So what that tells us that align should try to align all of these ampersands together, which I have put here. So all of these should be aligned together, and that makes the equality signs aligned. So we have different things. Let me just put a bunch of more things here. And you can later go and see what different commands I have used for different of these symbols. So I have integral, I have line integrals, I have partial derivatives, I have. So let me just point this out. So earlier we had seen that for union, we have this command called cap or cup for union. There's also big cup. So big cup is used for big unions like this, where you want to typically write something in the bottom as well as on the top. Okay. And let us now see some more things about how to create, how do you write something like a theorem. So let us see how to create a theorem environment. So again, for this, we have to go back to the top before begin document, and then we type out this thing. So I want a command which creates a theorem environment. So I will do new theorem, and let me just type this out. So I will say, I want to use the short form THM because it's easier to type out. So new theorem THM, and I want this to appear as theorem, the full name here. So someone has asked, what does the colon mark depict? I'm not sure where I had used a colon. Okay, so someone has asked, how do we type ceiling and floor of a number in LaTeX? Let me just write that here. So for ceiling and floor, you will use something like L floor will be the left part. So if I just do L floor X, you will get this, which is this left part, and then you just do R floor to finish it on the right. Someone has asked, how do I create product symbol for I equal to 1 to n and for I not equal to j? So let me just put this out here. And the way to go with that would be as follows. So you do /prod. So I equal to 1 to n, let's say. So this will give me the product I going from 1 to n. Now suppose I also want to say I is not equal to j. So again, this is not something which, so just look it up later. I won't elaborate on this much. So you just use something called a substack. So I equal to 1 and then I not equal to j. I will type below it LaTeX. So that will create this. So again, you can see this later. I don't really intend to emphasize on these smaller. Yeah. So I had just defined this thing called THM over here. Let's just see that. I defined this thing, new theorem, THM theorem here. So let us see how that works now. So I have created a new environment called theorem. And that I will use as this begin end theorem. And let us say a theorem that all integers are rational. So this will come as theorem 1. All integers are rational. I want to create something, let's say a corollary. So what I will do is I will go up and I will create this thing again, but I will call it. So what I type in this second one is what will show on the screen on the right. What I type in this first command here is basically what I'm calling my, so this is for my own convenience. I can just call it whatever I want. So all natural numbers are rational. Okay. So now I have a theorem 1 and I have a corollary 1. And it may not be surprising that both of them are named 1 because, well, they are independent. Right? So this is my first theorem, this is my first corollary. And if I do a theorem now, so let's say begin theorem, all integers are rational. I want to do something completely else. Pi is irrational. So that will be now theorem 2. I didn't have to take care of the numbering, it took care of it on its own. But as you might have seen, typically, usually what one also wants is that, okay, my corollary should also follow the same numbering as my theorem. So if I have theorem 1, after that I want corollary 2. And that is actually up to personal preference. But one reason for wanting that is so that when you're in a large document, you can just locate the closest numbered thing and you can then work around. So if I want corollary to follow the same numbering as theorem, what I will do is I will put an optional command here. I'll just mention whose numbering I want it to follow. So I put THM here to indicate that I want to follow this guy's numbering, THM here. Now if I recompile, it will come as intended. Theorem 1, corollary 2. There is no corollary 1. That is okay. Theorem 3. There is no theorem 2, but there is a corollary 2. So these things go like this. And now I can have a corollary to this. Pi is not an integer. So this is a corollary to say theorem 1 and theorem 3. So how do I, so let us also see what is a proof environment. So you can do begin and end proof. So if you use a proof environment, let's just compile, it automatically types out proof for you and it puts a box at the end. So I want to say pi is not an integer and I want to say use the earlier two theorems. So I will label these theorems, label, let's say integers are rational is my theorem 1 and this is theorem pi irrational. And so I will just say use theorems ref integers are rational and ref pi is irrational. Someone is saying, how do you refer to corollaries and theorems? I guess I just answered that. Can we similarly make lemmas? Well, of course you can, because there was nothing sacrosanct about corollary. I mean, these words are also not like you could call them anything. You can just call them my friend. And it will just show theorem 1, my friend 2, my friend 4. So of course you can do lemma. There is nothing sacrosanct about anything I've written here. Okay. Let us say, suppose I'm starting a new section. I want to suppose dedicate a section to pi. So I have a new section called pi. And so I've not put a slash. So this will just be pi. Okay, so now note that these theorems and corollary are using the same numbering across sections. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. This new section being here did not change anything. But sometimes you might want to number something within a section. So you might want that when I'm starting a new section, the numbering should again start from 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can do that as well. So similar to how we put a theorem here, we put a section afterwards. So note the position is different. So if I'm putting this square brackets before the name, that indicates I want to use someone else's numbering. But if I'm putting it like this, I'm specifying under what do I want it to be numbered. And now my theorem numbers are incorporating the section also. So they start afresh with each section and they keep track of the sections. And note that my numbering here has automatically changed. Again, that is sort of the beauty of LaTeX. You don't have to worry about these things on your own. By the way, one thing that you might want to now complain about is that why do I even have to type out the word theorems here? I already know it is called a theorem because I've already made that thing somewhere else. I don't even want to write the word theorems here. So for that, I will ask you to look up some packages. So let me just list some packages here. And that what I want to look up is this package called CleverRef. That will let you not even look, you don't even have to type out the word theorem there. So some packages to look at. And now I just want to also point out that you can create some commands of your own. For example, there's something that you know you will use quite often. So the recording has stopped. Should I wait for a moment? Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So you can create your commands of your own. So if you're going to use a command often, so you can just do something like new command. Let's say /n math vvn. So if you recall, this was the command for that Blackboard n. So I just made it /n. Similarly, I might want to put something like /z. And the benefit now is that I can use these n to z. So I can do something like f n to z. And so /2 is for an arrow. And done. So this has created commands of your own. You can also do something more elaborate. So you can also do commands which accept an input. So you can have something like new command. You type in your command name. Let's say you want to, for some reason, you want to shorten something. You want to shorten text BF to just BF. So you say /BF. You're saying you'll accept one command and you make it, let's say text BF. And you put /1, #1 to show that there is where your command goes, your argument goes. So now if I use /BF, so I can just use this as bold. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that at times you might want to use /BF, but it could be possible that /BF is already a LaTeX command. For example, I have gotten an error here. That is to say that command BF is already defined. So what you can do is something like, let's say, my bold. And wherever I had used /BF, I will just make it my bold. Of course, in this case, this is a bad example because what you've written is actually longer than or as big as text BF. But these commands are useful in at times. So, for example, if you are going to write d by dx, df by dx very often, for example, you can create this new command /td, which accepts two arguments and puts them in this form /fraction d command first argument and then second argument. So let us see how one would use this. you have bold, then you have, so df by dx, for example. This will now come as df by dx. And this is quite convenient. You don't have to, because this is otherwise a pretty long command. So we df by dx. You're saving up on redundancies quite often. And I think that is more or less for commands, for creating commands. Okay, so you may want to look up how do you create your own environments. That is same in spirit, but a bit more elaborate. And let me just show you that you have some fancy fonts also, by the way. So we've already seen Math BB Blackboard. So you have also Math Cal, which you might have seen, for example, being used to refer to a topology. And you also have Math Frac, which are sometimes used for commutative algebra. So NT. And someone has asked, how do we use Nabla? So you just put slash Nabla. I think slash Nabla itself will work. Yeah. And you can do capital delta to get this delta, and times will give you the normal. So we have C dots, which will give 3 dots in a vertically center position. And yeah, one more thing that I want to point out is you don't write text in LaTeX, as in math mode. So don't write text like this. So don't write text in math, because it will just turn out to be completely hideous. So what if you are in a math mode and you have to write text? For example, you're in display mode. So you can put a slash text. This is better. And then you can continue with your math outside of it. So if you put something in slash text in math mode, it will be better. Note that spacing in math mode does not really reflect here. So if you want to put a space after the exclamation mark, put it within the text. Someone is saying math fonts are not working. So then you have not imported everything which I had imported earlier. That is also one of the reasons why I don't bother with the different packages. I just import all of them at once. Yeah, so let me just put those packages in the chat. Yeah. So we have this, and let me just again dump a bunch of more commands. I'm just dumping a lot of them because you can just look at them later on. So you have square root and you have nth root. So that is these two. And you have different versions of empty set and so on. One more thing which I will point out is that if you write something like sine theta like this, it will look quite bad if you just write sine theta. This sin is looking quite hideous. This is also one way of noticing someone who does not use LaTeX very often or does not use it very well. Use slash sine theta, and you will already see there is a big difference in the things. So this is weird, this is normal. This is how one should write. Putting slash sine makes it look better. And there are many different. So I'll just again put a bunch more of already known commands. So there is sine, cos, tan, blah, blah, blah. There's log, natural log, determinant, max, sup. You can even do slash lim sup, lim inf, so on and so forth. You also have things like inf lim or yeah. So you can also do things like direct limits and projective limits. Sometimes you may want to use something which is not a default thing. For example, you might often want to look at AUT, automorphisms or something. So you have If you do /AUT, it is not already accepted. So this will not show up. So one way is to use /operator name and put it like this, AUT in that. But if this is something that you will use quite often, you can actually just create it yourself. So one way would be to do a new command and create that, but you can do declare math operator and just type whatever command you want for it. Let's say GL for GL. These two need not be the same. So you can just have, for example, yeah, let me just keep this as it is. So /GL, and now if you do say comma GLV, it will automatically put GL. So you have this. And just to make sure that, yeah. So now let us look at matrices, tables, and arrays. Let us start with matrices. So matrices are always used in math mode. And you do something like, so the command is begin matrix, end matrix, and you put a B in front of it. So B matrix is the command. And if I've not typed anything in between, it will look weird. So let us type something. And it is very simple. So you just do, suppose you have your first row 1, 2, 3. You just type it like this, and it will create your first row as this. If you want to go to a new line, put double this and then 4, 5, 6. If you put a // but there is no new line after that, it will still compile it in a good manner. So it is like this. And yeah, suppose you want curly braces, so you may do not curly, I mean rounds. Instead of B matrix, make it P matrix. So you will get round brackets. So let us look at something more complicated, let's say. So begin equation and begin B matrix. So let's say determinant. And I want to type what is called as the van der Waals determinant. So what I will do is 1 and 1 and so I want to put dots. So we had seen that C dots is the comment for dots. So I will do this. And what do I get? I get 1, 1, dot, dot. Okay. So far, so good. Similarly, I will type in my next line. And I will get this. Okay. But now I want to put vertical dots also. So C dots is center dots and V dots will put vertical dots. So I'll put V dots, V dots, V dots, V dots. And I have gotten this, and now I will finish my last line with this. And one thing is that personal preference, again, this looks a bit weird. That these vertical dots here look a bit weird. Like in one, okay, for their row they're fine, but for their column they're weird. So let us just, instead of V dots, I will put D dots. But the D stands for diagonal. And no surprise as to what we get. Now this looks much better. And this we can just write is equal to the product 1 less than. So I will use LEQ slant. So that looks like this. LEQ slant n AI minus 8. And here. One point I want to make about subscripts, you can write subscript as A1 or as a brackets, put 1 in the brackets. The point is that if you have more than one character, then you have to put them in brackets, otherwise it will not render as you want. So the first two will be identical, but this A10s which I have entered will not be. A1 is fine, but A10, if you just type A_10, you will not get the desired output. And similarly for superscript, you have to put them like this. And you can put nested subscripts also, A subscript N subscript N. And yeah. So this already should show, by the way, that it is much more convenient than to do it in something like MS Word. And there is also this command called cases. So if you want to define a function, let's say piecewise. So let us do this. So let f from R to R be defined by fx is equal to, so I use v semicolon and begin cases. So what this does is it's essentially like a matrix format, and you just type the two things separately. So x square is signed 1 by x and x not equal to 0 and 0 if x is equal to 0. So this part is pretty much like a matrix environment, what you might expect. And yeah, the output is what you would expect. And then you can do all sorts of things. And now let us look at table. And table is as follows. So for table, you don't have to be in a math environment. So begin tabular, and then overleaf automatically creates this thing. Let us delete that one. So how many columns do you want? You specify that here by saying, for example, CCC. So CCC will mean you have 3 columns, all of them are center aligned. I can also do something like LCR. LCR will mean that the first one is left aligned, then center, then right aligned. And you can do something like name, or let's say roll number, name, marks. And here you do say roll number 12, name Aryaman, marks 5, roll number 25, name let's say Raj, marks 10, and you compile and you get what you might expect. So the roll number 1 is left aligned, name is center aligned, and marks is right aligned because of that LCR. Now you might want to put some lines in between. So if you want to put horizontal lines, you just put an H line here. So I'm putting an H line before and after roll number. This first row, so you will get an H line on top and bottom. So you get a horizontal line like that, or maybe even a here. So I get. So now I get an error because I did not put this new line double slashes before the H line. And I want to, let's say, put horizontal vertical lines. So I'll just mention these lines here. And you can even put multiple vertical lines here and you will get double lines over there. Pretty neat. And you can change the alignment whenever you want. You can make this also an L and you get. So I'm asking how to add more in tabular. I don't understand the question. Yeah. And similarly, an array is exact same as a tabular, but you just put it in math mode. So let me just give an example. So I can just keep this example actually. So something, if you know that your entries are going to be predominantly, okay, let me just copy some. If you know that your entries are going to be predominantly math stuff, then you can just use an array in math mode. And this is an array in math. So the syntax is the same. You have H line for horizontal line, CCC for center, vertical, this pipe for vertical line. Okay, so here it's 3 column, how to add more. So you add more just by specifying an alignment at the top. So let's say I want center aligned. So I just add a C at the top. And then you have to make sure that you do actually put some more data over here. So blank. And we'll just get one more column over there. And since I have not put a pipe at the end, let me put that now. And now I will get a vertical line. Now I just want you to look up the packages table and figure, and so you can see how do you label tables. And so this is this. And one last thing which I will like to just cover briefly is how do you insert images. Typically, this is section images. Typically, I don't know for what purpose you might want to use, but I have rarely had to use images. But let us see it nonetheless. So we first have to upload an image to Overleaf. There's upload on the left. So we can actually just Google something. You can find the picture, open the picture. So there is one finger is there. I can. Yeah. So if you have the URL of a photo, that is also enough. So you can just do create URL. Yeah. So this picture has now come in as this, but let's say I want to rename it. So let me just call it curve. Okay. And I could show you how to do this, but for the sake of it, I want you to also learn how to look up stuff. So let us see how if I don't know how one does this, what would I do? So I will just simply look up, I'll go to Google, I will go to LaTeX, and let's say I want to look up create or insert images. Insert image. First thing which will typically come up is an overleaf thing. By the way, note that I visited this page quite recently, and this is I'm just pointing this out to show that I recently again relearned it just for the sake of this presentation, because I've forgotten how to insert it, and that is okay. And here, overleaf, you don't really have to read the text. Most of the time, you can just see what it's doing. See what all. So first thing you'll have to keep an eye out is, does it require some extra package? And it does. So it is use package graphics. So I'll just go here, go to the top. Wherever I've imported packages, let me insert a new package. Let's call it graphics. And now what? This is graphics path thing, which from the context, you'll see that you don't really need to know, because so this graphics path is something you would need if you put it in a different folder, but this is in the same location as that. So you don't need graphics path. Include graphics, and you just have to put the name of the thing. Okay. So let me go to images. This is an image. Include graphics, and I will put the name. So it's already suggesting what I have to put, curve.png. Okay. Let's see how it comes. Okay, this is very big. This is ideally not what we want. So what do we do? On the same page, if you just scroll a bit lower, you'll also see that there is this thing changing the image size and rotating the picture. And there's something you might want to find. This is sort of expected that if you have a tutorial on inserting images, it will typically also address how do you change the image size. Okay, so there is this thing called scale. So if you notice this pattern, if things are in this square bracket, they are optional commands, which are not necessary but can change the thing. So let's put scale 1.5. Clearly that is not what we want, because this is already going outside. So let me put scale 0.5. It will compile, and what do we have? Okay, now it is more bearable. It does fit, and 7.5 is a bit too small. It's 4.75, and this is good enough. So we have gotten an image.
A bit out.
Yeah.
If you want to say put a GeoGebra alert, then
Can you
can we
repeat
use
that?
the link for the site?
Are you saying can we just put a link in the document and that will do it?
No, sir, I'm saying like how you took the link of the URL of this image and then pasted it over there.
Yes.
So can we do the same for GeoGebra also?
For what?
GeoGebra.
I can't catch your last word. Could you put that in the chat? Oh, GeoGebra. Okay. So on GeoGebra, I believe it lets you do some output to LaTeX anyway. Yeah. So I am not sure. So I don't use GeoGebra and I've rarely had occasion to use these pictures also. But I think there are ways of getting stuff from GeoGebra to LaTeX directly. So for those of you who don't know, GeoGebra, I'm guessing you typically want something like a graph or something, right?
Yes, a graph or a geometry.
Yeah. So, yes, sorry, you're saying commutative diagram.
No, sir, geometry.
Okay. Okay, geometry diagram. Okay. So, yeah, so GeoGebra has some things which I'm not sure about, but this also reminds me of some packages I wanted to look up. So look up this package called Tix Picture. So Tix Picture lets you create your own. You can draw out things directly in LaTeX, and also Tix CD. So Tix CD is used for making commutative diagrams for those of you who know what that means. Can we use asymptote and overleaf? I don't know what asymptote is, but I think you can because I saw it over here, I think. And I saw GeoGebra. Asymptote LaTeX. So yeah, I'm guessing you can use it. Yeah. So there is that. So yeah, so as an example of Tix Picture, let me show, for example, LaTeX. LaTeX draw a rectangle, for example. So again, typically an overleaf. So an overleaf tutorial is more or less suited for these general questions rather than a Stack Overflow thing, Stack Exchange, which is more useful for particular things. So yeah, so you use package Tix and then you do the Tix picture and you can draw out things. And it is quite similar to how you would want to like program. You can sort of think of it as programming. In some sense, you can even run loops and things in it. So it is quite close to programming. And yeah, this is something you might want to do. We see others. One thing which I haven't talked about and one thing which I want you to look up later is headers and footers. So how do you change position of page numbers, insert header and footer, and even the sections? The sections end up like they show up in a particular format, right? Like they show one section name, two section name, blah blah blah, six section name. How do I customize that? And you can indeed customize that. That is something you may want to look up. Yeah, and as to give an example, I mean, once you've done that, I just wanted to know that there is a lot to be done. You can customize it a lot. And let me just give an example of something which I have created in the past using LaTeX. So that is this. Yeah, and this is sort of how it looks. So these are all red links are same. These are all hyperlinks. And yeah, you have these pretty beautiful. You have different fonts, by the way. I'm using different fonts. I'm using these colored boxes and things. My sections also look different. So my sections are not just number and section being numbered. I have a header also, if you see over here, which changes with the chapters. So if I go to a different chapter, so it will be something else and so on. So there is a lot to be done. This is something which is called a commutative diagram. And what I really want you to understand is that you should be able to Google things. That is more important than remembering things. Your voice is breaking. What were you saying? What are you saying?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir? So
Yeah, I can hear you.
could you please drop that link of that PDF, sir? Now which you show now.
Yeah. So the link of this PDF. I mean, I'm guessing. Do you want the link of the code instead than the PDF? I mean, because this PDF,
Yes, sir.
This PDF is interesting from a mathematical point of view, but from the point of view of this, so there is, I'll just drop in GitHub. So here is where I've put a lot of math stuff. Not all of this is LaTeX stuff, but for example, this will be under rep theory. So here you can find my LaTeX files. So here I have not put them all in one file. So the note, so that this is again something which you would see. If you're creating something which is large, you might want to split up your sections into different sections, like this what I've done here. So there are different sections, and then in my final notes, I just input all those sections one by one. And my notes is basically just taking care of different things like what do you call margins and different commands. So even here you can't even see the commands. The commands are also in a different thing. So I've put a custom package, and the commands are in a completely different file altogether. So there are a lot of commands over here. This is what I was talking at the beginning about template. So like now whenever I want to create a file, I just use the same file over and over. So I can just directly get to writing the content, and I don't have to really bother with this whole begin document, all these things, because after a while you develop a style. You develop some custom commands that you use very often. You develop what font you want to use, what font size, what margins, etc. And yeah, so that is this. Do you have any questions? So that I have covered more or less what I had wanted to cover. Not more or less, I have covered everything which I had wanted to cover. So yeah. Let me just go through the chat quickly to see if I've covered all the questions. Can we have this source file? Yes, you actually have live access to this source file. If you go to this link here, fetch.ly/CL-LADEX, you can get this file right now. Oh, unless you were asking about the source file to the LaTeX notes, which also I have put in the thing above. So how to add GeoGebra, asymptote. Someone has Praveen has pointed that you can use Control V for TextPF. That is true, you can use Control V, but that's a overleaf specific command. So in different compilers, you may not be able to use that. Okay, someone has asked, we write research paper in overleaf, does that remain confidential? So I think so. I mean, I'm not sure what is overleaf's privacy policy, but if you're comfortable, once you're comfortable enough with using overleaf, but LaTeX, then you can set it up locally, and then you don't have to worry about these things. I mean, but I would assume that overleaf would have some good privacy policy in place because it is used very widely now. Especially after the pandemic, it is used very widely because it has very good collaborative features. Someone is asking that they are good enough in MECTEC based text studio. Is overleaf useful for me? No, it's not. I mean, if you are comfortable with some other compiler, then it is fine. Overleaf is primarily useful for beginners. Yeah, I think that does all the doubts. Yeah.
Sometimes when we are doing the coding or this typing part, then we encounter some errors, environmental error or some different type of error. How we can easily remove that one, sir?
So let us
2-3 types of error.
to run into
2-3 types of error are there. how to remove that one?
Suppose you do alpha plus beta is equal to 2 and you compare and you get an error here. So overleaf will show you exactly what line has that error. So here it shows missing dollars. So, okay, it doesn't look bad, but now if I do something like hi, this is something. Now you'll see that everything will look bad, look like it's in a math font. And okay, it's on this different line, so it works out fine. So I'll do something like this. So LaTeX typically will show you what is the error on the same line. So here it's showing missing dollars. So that will mean that you are missing some dollar signs. So that is easily fixable. Otherwise, you can just Google that error which you get, and you will be able to find someone on Tech Stack Exchange who has asked that doubt years ago. So I'm not able to think of a. Okay, for example, I mean, it may be possible at some point that you're using the same reference for two things. You use the same reference name for two different things. Then LaTeX will show an error and then you will be able to figure out what that error was. Or something more complicated. Could be something like, so do you have an error which you are facing? I mean, then we can just look at that. And like for example, at the beginning, I had this error that if I use new command, but then what I'm typing is something that is already a command, that will also give an error. But those errors in that case was actually pretty self-descriptive. So you typically wouldn't Google that, but there are some more things which you would have to Google. And because LaTeX will give the error in a very specific format. So that specific what might have been asked by someone else earlier, and you will get your answer. Anything else? If not, then I think we can then end this.
Okay. Anyone have yes.
Yeah, you're asking something? Your voice was breaking a bit.
If anyone has any queries, please put forward.
The link you have shared for this LaTeX file, it's showing error when I'm putting on Google.
Link? Which link?
That bit.ly.latex.
I think it works. You just go here and just type this.
Bit.
Yeah, it opens fine.
Okay.
I mean, don't Google it. I mean, just put it directly in your. I mean, if you want, I can just share the. One thing which I would suggest is that look up some piece of writing, some mathematical piece of writing, and just try to recreate that. Because there are many small miscellaneous things which you will find out only once you start writing. For example, how do you put an horizontal line? How do you put something like, if you want something like this is true, and I mean, at times you might have seen in textbook that you have something at the end of a sentence in parentheses y. How do you write something like that? How do you put a horizontal line? And if you're writing a fraction in inline mode, it's a bit small. How do you make it bigger? So these things won't really come to mind until you start writing these things. And then you start Googling these things and you see how these things work. For example, putting this D in front of the frac has changed it from this small 1 by 2 part to this large 1 by 2. So this D stands for display. So this is basically using display math even in inline math. I think I'll end now because if I just keep thinking of miscellaneous stuff, it will never end. So yeah, I'll just stop sharing this.
Mr. Aryaman, it gives us glee in thanking you for this wonderful workshop on Introduction to LaTeX. I hope everyone learned something new today. It's time for us to get feedback on this event. You are provided with the Google form for your suggestion and feedback. Please fill out that form, which will be more valuable for us to improvise our work. If any of you want to share feedback right now in the meeting, feel free to unmute yourself and tell your feedback. It will help us to grow. Now it's time for expressing our gratitude. So now I call upon Amlan Sinha, one of our volunteer of Curry Leaf, to give a vote of thanks.
Okay, I will do it. Yeah. So first of all, on behalf of Karilif, I would like to thank Mr. Aryaman Maithani for accepting our invitation as a speaker for this event and for this wonderful workshop. Starting from the very basics of creating an account in Overleaf, he ended up in writing text as we see in the textbook. Thank you so much once again. Next, I would like to thank Professor Satyanarayan Reddy for accepting our invitation to attend this workshop. Thank you so much, sir, for your constant support as our advisor and guide. And we all know that since the very beginning, the inception of the relief, the MTTS Trust has been supporting us in all possible ways. I would like to thank MTTS Trust for all possible kind of support. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants for their active participation. Without you, this workshop would not be successful. So hope to see you all in the next events of the relief. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amlan. Now it's time for a group photo. Who are all interested, please turn on your video to take a snap to save our memory.
Ilan, are you taking the photo? You're not audible. Am I audible now? Yeah.
Yes.
Photo is okay. I'll take photo with saying 3, 2, 1, and then smile, and then we'll click the photo. Good.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, 1. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We again extend our thanks to our speaker, Mr. Aryaman, MTTS Trust, faculty advisor, and participants for the success of this workshop. I hope the participant got a strong introduction to LaTeX, which is most useful tool in your academic journey. This recording is available on YouTube, and you can share it with friends, juniors who may find this to be useful. Thanking you. See you all at another event. Thank you.
Thank you.